Hi, everyone. My name is Pascale Hansen. I'm the CEO and financial strategist at Zada, which is a boutique firm created to help business owners achieve more. And we help through planning, education, and consulting. And one thing that makes us unique is that we work with a vast network of vetted strategic partners and experts to help our clients keep thriving. And today I'm having a conversation with one of our experts, Ryan, who's a business banking consultant. So he helps business owners navigate the complexities of dealing with banks to get loans and credit facilities. Ryan actually worked as a commercial banker with Scotiabank, and he specialized in structuring debt facilities ranging from 2 to 25 million across a range of lending facilities, including property and equipment loans, lines of credit, letters of credit, hedging, and derivatives. And Ryan was actually recognized twice with Scotiabank's Best of the Best award as the department's top performer. So thanks, Ryan, for being with me today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. No, I appreciate you having me here. Oh,
And
sorry,
I
you know,
should
as we
also,
start, of course, I got to send a call to voicemail. There we go.
no worries, no worries.
Yeah,
And I
no.
should mention too that Ryan is actually one of our contributors to Elevate. So Elevate is our online course for business owners, and it covers topics from A to Z. So everything that you would need to know more about to get elevated results and to keep your business thriving. So um, the first question I have for you, Ryan, is what would be the number one impediment that you saw working with business owners when you were working at the bank? So any business owner looking for new credit or services in general.
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, I did 3 years of commercial banking, and you saw all types of small businesses coming through. Everything from manufacturing to property investors to services and professional firms, things like that. I would say the number one impediment was people not being prepared for coming to meet with the bank. And what I mean by that is it could have been not having the right documents ready. It could have been not being prepared or knowing what questions the bank was going to ask. Unfortunately, banks are quite rigid in terms of what they require, what documents they need, what information they're going to need and questions they're going to need answered. And it'd be funny. I'd get people saying, "Oh, they don't think I need that," and I'd say, "Well, unfortunately, there's no choice really." So yeah, I would just say it's not being prepared for that, so it leads to wasted time, and then also just not knowing maybe all the products and services that we had or they could qualify for or how they were qualified for those things, and just kind of lead to inefficiencies, wasted time. And I think time is absolutely the most important thing when it comes to small business owners, just because it's so valuable and they're always so busy. So, extra meetings are not ideal.
Well, and I think also when you're dealing with the bank, you might be submitting information that's not going to help you and you don't understand why. So it
Yeah,
can be very frustrating. So that's
yeah,
where you have great help. So what
yeah.
are some of the main pain points that small business face with their banking, and what would be some of the ways to combat that?
Yeah. I'd say in terms of actually like their utilization of their banking services, a lot of times, the main pain points would be simply from them not having all their services set up. I saw this all the time with things like cash management is a great example. Businesses who don't have all the services that they would need to send payments around the world and pay their employees and make sure that they're on time with all their payments and collecting payments. Payments is a huge one. Obviously, every business owner wants money in as quick as possible and send money out when they need to, because the last thing you want to do is be late for a payment with one of your vendors. So, many businesses wouldn't have those set up properly right off the bat, and that might have been because they didn't know what to ask for, or they forgot to, or they just thought, "Oh, I'll worry about that later." And I would say the time spent up front to get everything set up from A to Z, all your services that you're going to need is going to save you so much time in the future. It saves you from sitting on hold with help desks and service centers and trying to call me, and I'm not available, things like that, right? And then I have to go fight that battle internally. I did have to. I don't have to anymore. I always forget I'm not a banker anymore.
Yeah, no, and everyone hates all of that.
Yeah.
1-800 call tree, and then you're pressing numbers and just wasting a lot of time. So
Yeah. Well, yeah.
how is the relationship between business and bankers structured? And can you outline like the bank's organizational structure and how businesses fit in with it? And then
Mhm.
secondly, what's the importance of the relationship with your account manager?
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, the relationship with the account manager I think is really important, and sometimes overlooked. But talking about things like sitting on hold and not knowing who to call within the bank, I think knowing who your service team is super important. So you know who to call and when to call them. But simply just on structure, I think this is important to know. Most, if not all, banks will be structured between small business and commercial banking divisions, and there's kind of a gray line as to where that's cut off. So small business, your account managers would be a small business advisor that typically runs through the retail side of the bank, through the branch. Now they manage a lot of clients, at least at Scotia, and it's typically the same in most other banks. A small business advisor, SBA, would have hundreds of clients. And then on the commercial side, which is for bigger businesses, they would have anywhere from 40 to 100 clients, depending on how big those clients are and how much attention they needed. But it would typically be divided somewhere around the like $1 million lending size, or maybe the business size is just maybe they don't have lending, but they're so big they have so much in deposits and cash management. Maybe they're doing millions of dollars worth of transactions a year, so they would fit commercial. But that's kind of how it's divided, and the commercial bank is typically a bit more hands-on approach to managing those accounts. You get a personal account manager that is a bit easier to reach, maybe I would say. And is a bit more involved in setting up your banking and your credit structure. Um, and yeah, like I said, they're managing less clients, so they're typically easier to get a hold of. But having that relationship with the advisor, I think, is really important. Like I said, it's underrated. The better that you know your banker and vice versa, they know you. Again, this all comes back to time. The more time you're going to save. So if there's issues, and say, I'll use a very easy example. Say I have a client and I get notified that there's a payment coming in from Italy, for example, a random country. If I know my client well enough, maybe I've met them before, and I know that they do business in Italy, or they have a vendor or a client there, and they're making payments internationally there. If I know that, then I don't have to deal with them, call them, make sure things are okay, make sure there's not some sort of privacy breach, things like that. It just helps us save a lot of time. Whereas if I don't know that, now I got to call them, we got to work it out, we got to update their client documents, all that stuff. So I think the better you know your clients, the better you're going to be able to set up services for them, and then just simply save them time by not needing to bug them all the time for issues like that.
Maybe take some of those holds off when payments come in so you get your money
Yeah.
faster.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would always do things like that for clients where they wouldn't necessarily even know it, but that's kind of the point, They shouldn't always know all the stuff that's going behind the walls, and the more efficient we are, more seamless it is for them, for sure.
Yeah, and I think just from working in the FX world myself, often business owners wouldn't understand why do you need all this information. It's like,
Yeah.
because it's anti-money laundering, we have to do our due diligence and know you're legitimate, and if you miss 2 lines on this form,
Yeah,
it's such a waste of time. Now I got to follow up with you and chase you around, and you're traveling and all that jazz.
definitely. And there's a lot that, well, not a lot, but there's certain things that the bank technically can't even really tell you, like why they're looking into something. So
Yeah.
it leads to more questions and pain points. So yeah, you're definitely right. A lot of people say, well, why would you need that? I think, if you can be prepared for that rather than try and fight it, it'll be a lot easier and a lot less headaches.
Yeah, exactly. It's nothing worse than you think you have all the documents and then important stuff is missing.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And then you have to come back for another meeting, and now we're trying to schedule a meeting into next week, and next thing you know, you've wasted a whole week.
Ex-
You're not going to get another meeting the next hour, the same day, typically. So
I know, and everyone wants their money yesterday.
yeah.
So as a business banking consultant, what do you think are some of the value that you bring to business owners?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. Thanks. I think, well, like we've touched on already, time saving is the first one. Helping them be prepared for what they're going to need when they go to the bank. Helping them with a pre-qualification of what they could qualify for based on how the bank analyzes a business, both quantitatively and qualitatively. Um, like I said, helping them make sure they know what documents they're going to need, what questions to be ready to answer. Make sure they're lined up for all these things so that most, if not everything, can be done within that first meeting. So let's say you're going to apply for a loan, know what documents you're going to need, what questions you're going to be asked, and then also what you can qualify for is a big one. The last thing you want to do is go to the bank and say, I need $1 million loan, and they say, well, you can only qualify for 500,000 or 700, 800,000, and now you kind of have to go back and re-strategize. If you can be prepared for all that up front, that's again going to save you time and money. And the other thing I would do is also help them manage relationships within the bank. So there's not just the commercial account manager. There's the payments and cash management team. There's the wealth management team. There's everything that's helping manage their treasury to their receivables, to their FX, and trade finance, all that stuff. Those are all different departments. So making sure that they're all talking to each other is a big one because they often don't.
Yeah, and getting all the value that you can, and if it makes sense, doing one-stop shop. And I think teaching business owners what to expect, like what good service should look like.
Hmm.
If you're paying fees and everything else, I think you always want to get your value for the money that you're paying.
Definitely, definitely. And yeah, the other thing I was going to say is just like in terms of what I can help with. I mean, it's going to be a case by case, but definitely off the bat with a small business or a business owner, I'd want to have that discovery meeting. But I could go so far as to maybe even manage the communication between the bank and the business, where they might not have a full-time CFO or something like that to do that, where maybe I come in and help them for the month that they're going to need help with, and manage that back and forth just to save them time. They don't have to think about it.
I think
um,
that's great value. You don't have to think of how do you structure this email and am I using the right, what does all the jargon mean? I think people get confused with that as well.
for
So can
sure.
you
Yeah.
give an example from your time in commercial banking of a client that would have benefited from services from a business banking consultant?
Yes, I can probably think of a few, but I do have one for sure that I think might be the best example. And I won't use names or anything, of course, for their benefit. But I was working with a professional services firm. I won't say what kind, but think, lawyers, accountants, so something like that. So I was working with a firm that was going through a bit of an organizational restructure, and they had partners coming in as well. So partners buying into the firm. So we did loans for the partners. We restructured their credit for this new firm that was going through an organizational restructure. And it wasn't an overly complicated deal. I will say this is something that, I was able to do within a month. It wasn't very hard. But the problem I faced is when you're dealing with a professional firm, especially like let's use lawyers for example. Like they're legal experts. They're not, and they're very busy, right? They don't have the time or the wherewithal to kind of work with the bank all the time, and it can be very frustrating. So in this case, I think there was a lot of wasted time when it came to the back and forth, right? Things that I needed that they didn't have ready, and then things that they're like, well, I don't know if you're going to need this, and all that stuff. And like I said at the top there, banks are quite rigid. So there's a lot that we couldn't get around that I just would need, and security that we needed to structure that we went back and forth on. And it was just a lot of wasted time. And at the end of it, we had a debrief, and there was no hard feelings, but it was just, how could we have made this smoother? And, they definitely sacrificed a lot of time dealing with me, frankly, dealing with the bank, which is lost revenue, right? When you bill by the hour, or you have, when you're saying no to business because you have to do things like that. Let's say you bill something like $500 an hour. I'm sure you'd be more than willing to pay a consultant, $100 an hour, something like that, right? Just to save that time, and so they don't have to interrupt their business. I think that's probably the best example of where that could have been used.
Yeah, no, that's a great example. So thank you for all of that. So to wrap up, I'm going to ask you a question which is completely unrelated to business banking.
Okay.
And that is, if you could have dinner with anyone dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oh my goodness.
I know that's what everyone says when I ask them that.
Yeah, and I've thought about that question many times, and I've never really come to one answer. specifically because there is someone, but they say don't meet your heroes. But let's assume in this example that the meeting goes off very well. I mean, I'm a big golfer, huge Tiger Woods fan. It would have to be Tiger Woods, and not even golf related. He might be, I think you'd put him up there with Michael Jordan in terms of the greatest minds in sports.
Right.
I think it would be fascinating to try and uncover how on earth that mind operates, in terms of being so dedicated and strategic and tuning out the noise and being so focused on one goal. Um, I don't know if there's anyone else like that. So I think that would be really cool to try and unpack that. Not that he'd necessarily share the secrets, but let's say hypothetically.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good one. It's the first time I've had a golfer as an answer.
Yeah.
But that's all good.
Yeah.
That's he is a brilliant mind.
Yeah.
So that wraps it up for this interview. Thank you, Ryan, for your time. For everyone listening and watching, thank you for your time. If you need to get hold of me or Ryan, you can always email us at info@zadacorp.com. Thanks and bye for now.
Yeah. Thank you.